The cultural diamond is a theoretical framework introduced by the sociologist Wendy Griswold as an accounting device to illustrate how culture and elements of culture are connected with the broader social world. With regard to our course in the sociology of contemporary culture, it helps show how things that seem entirely individualistic at first glance, for instance the kind of movies, music, food, and comedy we like, or even our dating preferences and behaviors, are often intertwined with the broader social contexts and environments in which we live. The cultural diamond consists of four elements: the cultural object, the creator or creators of the object, the audience or receivers who experience the cultural object, and the broader social context in which the object's creators and receivers operate. The cultural object itself is what Griswold calls shared significance embodied in form. This definition has three key elements to it. 1. It has significance or meaning attached to it. 2. This meaning is shared. And 3. This meaning takes some kind of form. Take luxury cars as an example. On the one hand, in very objective literal terms, these vehicles are merely objects we purchase and use to transport us from place to place. However, as cultural objects, these cars have the significance of being highly valued. Most of us who see these cars recognize that they are probably only affordable by wealthy people. To that end, many of us may secretly or openly wish we owned a car like one of these because it may raise our standing in the eyes of our peers. Our knowledge of the costliness of these cars and the enviable wealth of someone who owns them means that this significance is shared. It is not merely imagined by a single person, but rather understood by society at large. Some of us might be critical of the significance that society places on such cars, but this criticism arises only because we share an understanding of the significance in the first place. Finally, these cars have form in the most literal way. They are physical objects we can actually sit in and drive around. However, cultural objects are not restricted only to tangible things. They also can be something audible, like music, something visible, like a film or television show, or even something that can be articulated in language, like a widely held belief or principle. Let's situate luxury cars within Griswold's cultural diamond. Here at the bottom we have the cars themselves, intertwined as they are with the value of prestige that they tend to grant those who own them. Of course, these cars would not be possible without the car manufacturers who have designed and built them. Likewise, there would be no point in these manufacturers making these cars if there were no one to buy them, so the consumer who can afford cars like these also matters. Finally, these cars are only a luxury item because not everyone can afford them. Only in a world or country where a small select few, in this case the wealthiest, can afford them do these cars gain their cultural meaning as an object of prestige. Let's take a look at four less obvious examples to illustrate how versatile the concepts of the cultural object and the cultural diamond are when talking about culture. Fashion, for example, is more than just the clothes we wear. Instead, like luxury cars, some styles of clothing are seen as more valuable or desired than others. In other words, they have meaning that extends beyond their purely functional purpose of keeping us covered and protected from the elements. In this way, fashion can refer to both the tangible aspects of the clothes themselves, as well as the intangible aspects of clothing styles. To create these styles, there are the creators, not only those who design them, but also those who produce them. And once more, styles of clothing are only relevant if there are people who buy and wear them, the receivers or consumers. At the same time, the broader social world plays a role as well. Our culture or celebrity worship makes us susceptible to fashion trends, started by celebrities who essentially act as walking ads for the designers they represent at prestigious celebrity events like award ceremonies. Our social values also play a role. For instance, our growing awareness of the impact humans make on the environment and the animals living in it has made fashion involving the use of animal fur a lot more contentious than it used to be. What about religious beliefs? Unlike cars and fashion, religious beliefs aren't produced in an economic marketplace for consumers to buy, at least not in a literal sense. However, they are objects in the sense that they aren't just thoughts. Rather, they can be articulated and they are imbued with meaning, since they often instruct those who believe them on how to conduct themselves in their daily lives. For instance, take the belief espoused in the Christian Bible that we should love our neighbors as we love ourselves. Now, of course, depending on who you ask, you may get different answers as to who truly originated this saying. As sociologists, it is not our place or our job to take a position on whether any religious beliefs are true or not. To that extent, while we would not argue one way or another about who originated the saying, what we can say is that this belief is kept alive and contemporary by those who teach and espouse it, for instance, pastors and priests in Christian churches. And since these religious leaders need people to hear their messages to keep these ideas alive, one also needs congregants who attend these churches and take the teachings of religious leaders to heart. And finally, where would we be more or less likely to hear such beliefs, whether within churches or if they are popular and widespread enough in the broader mainstream culture? Well, probably in places that are either friendlier to, more familiar with, or even more supportive of Christian beliefs, which usually means places where Christians constitute the majority or at least a large proportion of the population. Let's turn next to law, yet another example of a cultural object that is intangible. Although laws are merely words on a page or words spoken, however, they are meaningful by virtue of how these words can be enforced, often through the legal arm of the state, on everyday people. Given its recent overruling, let's take Roe v. Wade as an example, if not of a law per se, then at least a formal Supreme Court ruling. This decision, at least before it was overturned, formally protected a person's right to abortion. This was a ruling made by the highest court in the US, the Supreme Court. Both before and after it was overturned, this ruling had both intangible and tangible implications for women in the country. But the controversy over the ruling, both regarding the decision itself and its repeal, did not happen in a vacuum. Rather, it occurred in an environment that was so contentious that it was often a rallying cry both in terms of social activism as well as political voting behaviors. Finally, let's consider social rituals as our last example. Social rituals can be broadly defined as recurring collective behaviors in society. In one sense, they are merely actions or behaviors that many people do. On the other hand, they are made meaningful by the value placed on them by those who engage in them or watch them. For instance, engaging and then uploading TikToks of certain challenges has become a kind of social ritual on social media, often to get likes or laughs from those who view them. One example, which some of you may even have participated in, is the tortilla challenge, which involves playing a game of rock, paper, scissors with a mouthful of water, in which the loser is smacked across the face by the winner with a tortilla while trying to keep the water in their mouths. As with the other forms of cultural objects, even a social ritual like this can be located within the cultural diamond. TikTok challenges don't emerge out of nowhere, and so someone or some people must have started them. While it is difficult to say where and when TikTok challenges started, it is reasonable to think that they began with people on TikTok who posted these activities for the viewership of their followers. Perhaps they were so-called influencers, or perhaps they were just regular people who just posted TikToks of themselves for fun rather than as a living, but were fortunate enough for their TikTok to go viral. Either way, social media users themselves are often both the creators and receivers of the social ritual of TikTok challenges. Some social media users create something that's viral enough for others to want to mimic them, and then other social media users watch these TikToks and recreate them, either by engaging in these rituals and then posting TikToks of themselves to their followers, or simply by sharing the TikToks. In doing so, these social rituals are kept alive in the world of social media. What about the social world? While people have always challenged their friends and families to do silly and amusing things, what has made TikTok challenges a thing is the world of modern digital communications in which we live. Most of us have smartphones with a variety of social media apps that many of us use on a daily, if not hourly, basis. Videos on social media can only go viral because we live in a world in which social media is such an important part of many, especially the younger, people's lives. In this video, we have talked about the cultural diamond as comprising 4 elements: creators, receivers, the social world, and of course the cultural object itself. Cultural objects are defined by 3 things. 1, they are more than just the sum of their parts. They have significance or meaning attributed to them. 2, this significance or meaning is generated and shared among groups of people, not just individuals. And finally, 3, these cultural objects take some kind of form. The most obvious of these are those that have tangible physical properties. However, some cultural objects are intangible. The form they take, however, is something that is audible, visual, or even just something that can be articulated.